Hello, I bought this book recently called Palette Perfect by Lauren Wager, and inside it shows lots of different colour combinations. The colour combinations are given in the form of a pie chart, and rather than just giving you colours, it gives you proportions of colours as well. I flicked through and found one that I liked and thought I'd use it for a new painting. This is the dried undercoat I've got for my painting, and I did it just using up leftover paint on my palette from my last painting session. So going back to the colour scheme, I mixed up the paints which I needed. I got some little tubs from Amazon, which I'll link to in the description box down below. These are a mixture of Amsterdam standard acrylic paints and Winsor & Newton Galleria paints. You can see I've not mixed them up very well, but I'm not worried about that because of the kind of style of painting I'm doing. This is a photo I took of St Michael's Mount, which I'm using as a reference photo. I start off by painting a black outline of my picture. I've used Winsor & Newton Professional Acrylic for this because I found the student grade blacks weren't quite pigmented and opaque enough for this. Then using very loose brush strokes and a large brush, I paint in all of the areas, leaving a little bit of the black lines showing through. I'm aiming for a very primitive type looking painting here. This is the first time that I've worked from paint in these little tubs, and I found that I really enjoyed it. It reminded me of using flash paints out of the open jars. They're wide enough that I can use my largest paintbrush and also my largest silicone brush. It was also nice having a limited colour palette and having them pre-mixed. I then carried on playing around with the painting. I scraped off a lot of the sky paint and from the mount using a Princeton wedge tool, and then painted over and got a more layered effect. My foreground had got a bit fussy, so I ended up with a very simple design using a palette knife. I also added in another shade of brown and lots of variations of muted turquoise in the sea. I'd mixed a few more tubs of paint up as well. I'm quite new to acrylic painting really, and so I've been trying to work out a better system for cleaning my brushes as I go along. I was getting in a right mess with paper towels. So what I've come up with now is to have one piece of fabric out for cleaning off my brush before I put it in water. Then I rinse my brush in water, and this has been cutting down the amount of paint in my water, and then I dry the brush on a second piece of fabric. I throw away the painty piece, but then I can dry out the wet one and reuse it. I found an old duvet cover and cut it up into squares, so I've got a good wad load that will last me for ages now. Also, to cut down on wasted paint, before I wipe off my painty brush in the first piece of fabric, I try and get off as much paint as possible on a spare board. So these 3 boards were filled with paint from my brush, which I just spread out a bit with a palette knife, and they can become the basis for future paintings. So this style of painting definitely won't be to everybody's taste, but I'm really enjoying exploring it at the moment. It's the style of painting which I learnt on my recent art course, taught by Iona Sanders at the St Ives School of Painting. I did another video showing my paintings from this course, which I'll link to as well down below. And following that, a few people had asked if I'd show a bit more about the process. It's a bit hard to record in real time, I'm afraid, because this canvas is quite big. I can only get my camera high enough above it by holding it myself, which then obviously means I can't paint. The way we painted on the course as well involved working on several paintings at the same time, which I found I really loved, because when I'd get stuck on one painting I could move to the next, and then you look at all the paintings with fresh eyes and just add bits to them when new inspiration comes for each one. I thought I'd just show you a little bit more of this book for anyone who's interested. I managed to get this second hand, but I don't think it's too expensive brand new. It's broken down into sections of colour combination themes, and it's got some lovely photography throughout it. It talks a little bit about colour theory. So it gives a few pages where there's an individual colour palette which is divided into a pie chart. so you have the proportions of colours, like I was saying earlier. And I like how it gives you some examples for a few different colour palettes. That's a really nice one. It also gives you the CMYK and the RGB numbers so that the exact shades can be recreated. This is the one that I used today. And then at the end of each section, it gives you a few pages, 3 full spreads of different ideas for the colours. That's a really fun section. So I won't show you the whole book obviously, but just to give you a good idea. I don't normally worry too much about my colour choices. I find that I can pick out something I like relatively easily, but I just thought this might help me look in some other directions and spread out a little bit. And it's a gorgeous book visually anyway. And then at the back of the book, it's got a list of all the different artworks and photography and who's responsible for them, which is nice. You can look up people you've been inspired by and see their other work. So yeah, that's a nice little book. Well, thanks ever so much for watching this video. It's a bit of a hodgepodgey one, but hopefully it'll be interesting to someone. Bye!